From California is recognized for 5 minutes.
I want to thank the chairman for allowing me to speak on this important bill. Today we're going to hear, Mr. Speaker, a lot of falsehoods. But we need to get to the bottom of why are we hearing those falsehoods. Because for 40 years in this body, people have made a career of using water as a weapon. Why? Because they never liked the fact that farmers and farm workers were making what was once a dry area of the state the Garden of Eden of this world. They never liked that. Why? Because they don't want to have to admit to themselves when they live in their beautiful cities of Hollywood and San Francisco and all these great cities that are on the coast of California, beautiful areas. It's a desert. They don't have any water either. So they wanted to keep our area, where I grew up, they wanted to keep it as a desert because they feel bad about the destruction that they've done on the coast of California. So if they can keep inland California in its original state, they'd be happy with that. But for the farmers and the farm workers that are losing their farms, farm workers are out of jobs. We're going to lose 30,000 jobs probably this year. It's an inconvenient truth that for 40 years, this body has been preempting state law and taking water away from one region and dumping it and wasting it out to the ocean. You started with the Endangered Species Act, state preemption. 1992, a lot of talk about how we're gutting the Central Valley Project Improvement Act. That bill was a state preemption. We have no way to fix the problems in California because of all the state preemptions that have been done by the left in this body over 4 decades. So I found it fascinating, the members of Congress that were getting up to speak about how we're going to kill the fish and this water is so important for these fish and the little delta smelt, we got to keep them and keep the habitat. Well, there's a little more truth to that, Mr. Speaker. Let me tell you what they're really hiding. And I apologize for the viewers at home. This is what they're hiding. Sewer discharge into the Delta, killing their precious little fish. Every one of the cities in the San Francisco Bay, Sacramento, the Delta. Sewage runs right into the waterway, kills the little fish. It's pretty startling, isn't it? They don't talk about that, do they? The other little thing that they don't talk about is where does their water come from? Because they live in a desert too. People don't realize that. You go visit San Francisco, you visit Silicon Valley, people think that, oh, that's a beautiful area, you know, there looks green lawns, people water their lawns. They don't have any water, Mr. Speaker, either. Because conveniently, this body preempted state law, took water from our area in the Sierra Nevadas, which is about 200 miles away. But worse than that, they went into a national park to take the water. What national park? Yosemite National Park. They went to Yosemite, one of the treasures of our national park system, and they took this valley and they put a dam so that they could create this lake. Now look, I want the people of San Francisco and the Bay Area to have water. I don't want them to be like our communities and not have any water. But we have to tell the truth, Mr. Speaker. They dammed up this valley to create this water that then it doesn't go to the Delta to protect their little fish that they care so much about. No, Mr. Speaker. It gets piped over to San Francisco. Here's the pipe. It runs, this is the Sierra Nevadas. They catch the water, they pipe it all over the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, discharge their sewer into the Bay, take pristine water from our area to feed their families, grow their grass. I don't see any of them up here saying that they're going to tear down this system, dump this water into the Bay to protect their stupid little fish, their little delta smelt that they care about. We don't see that, Mr. Speaker, because they don't want to tell the truth. This isn't about truth-telling. This is about money. and power. Millions of dollars. I asked for one additional minute. So all of the radical environmental groups that were created in this country started where? In that little epicenter, Hollywood and San Francisco on the west coast of California. Lawsuits. Lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Millions of dollars went to trial lawyers. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? Those millions of dollars that came from my community to pay off these rich lawyers, we don't know how many millions it was because it's hidden from the taxpayer. It's hidden from the American people, sealed by court order. Why don't they come out and tell us how much money they made? Millionaires off of government. Use the government to make millions. Use the government to dump sewer into the water to kill the fish. Dam up Yosemite to bring the water from Yosemite for fresh water, while our people, farmers and farm workers, lose their jobs. It's an inconvenient truth, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is about 40 years of policies that passed out of this body that took water from our region and sent it out to the ocean. That's what this debate is about. So the inconvenient truth for the folks on the left is that their 40 years of policies have resulted in people running out of water. One of the times they stole water was in 1992. After that, we had what were called the Bay Delta Accords. State-federal partnership, that was the last time we were supposed to give up water. It codified into law that agreement. So the gentleman was talking about stealing water. They're very good at stealing water. At the time they stole water last time, they said the accord was going to be the last time we were going to have water stolen from us. That was in 1994. But water continued to be stolen. And now there seems to be this misunderstanding about how the system works. LA, Hollywood, San Francisco, it's a desert. They don't have water. They conveniently get their water from the Colorado River or from Yosemite Valley. They ignore all environmental rules. But they make our people that live in the San Joaquin Valley live by the rules that they don't want to live by. That's the reality. So we have these projects that are built for 5 years of storage and movement of water. So you can see when we had a drought in 97 and 91 and 2009, these were the allotments at those times. Last year, we actually didn't have real bad drought. Look at the allocation. So the system simply isn't being used. All the aqueducts, all the dams that were constructed and led by Democrats of all people, Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy said this: "This is a fast trip, but if it had no other benefit than to permit us to look at this valley and others like it across the country, where we can see the greenest and most richest earth producing the greatest and richest crops in the country, and then a mile away, see the same earth and see it brown and dusty and useless. And all because there's water in one place and there isn't in another." President Kennedy had the foresight to construct these projects that now, after 40 years of bad policies by the left, they've run the state out of water. They've run the state out of water. And meanwhile, they talk about killing fish. Well, why are they killing the fish? Because all of these cities that most of on the left represent dump their sewage into the delta that kill the fish. So stop dumping the sewer water in the delta if you care about the fish. If you care about the fish, give up your water in Yosemite National Park. Let that water go out to the delta to save the fish. Mr. Speaker, time for stealing water has ended, and that's what this bill does. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
McClintock is
Mr. Chairman, I'm
recognized.
pleased to yield the balance of our time to the distinguished gentleman from California who introduced the predecessor to this bill 2 years ago, the Honorable Devin Nunes.
Gentleman from California, Mr. Nunes, is recognized for 2 3/4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from California for yielding. So, Mr. Speaker, not only this amendment, but the last amendment, it's about one thing. Let's not be fooled here. It's about sewer discharge from the communities that are in the Delta that continue to dump their sewer water, runoff water, into the Delta. They don't want to have to take responsibility for their actions. So I hate to have to keep going back to this, but we're going to have to go back to it again. There you see a discharge. Here's the communities, all dumping sewage into the Delta. That's all this is about. Both of these amendments. That's why you should vote against them. But what's interesting about this is that you've heard a lot of talk about the fish, because this is what the true believers really want to protect. They want to protect this little fish right here called the Delta smelt. This is what this is about. It's about the Endangered Species Act. It's about the biggest water grab in history and running people out of water to protect this little fish. But they just don't want to protect that fish. Oh no. That's not good enough, Mr. Speaker. They want to dump their sewer water and protect the smelt and protect, this is really inconvenient, they want to protect the striped bass. Now, the striped bass is not native to the Delta, but they want to protect it. You know why they want to protect it? Because they say that, fishermen, they want to fish, but conveniently, it's not native to the Delta. But guess what the striped bass eats? If you can see on your television screen, Mr. Speaker, see those little, it eats a smelt. It eats a smelt, Mr. Speaker. It's inconvenient little truth there. So they want to protect these and these. This one eats those. This is a problem that can't be fixed by people who want to protect little fish, Mr. Speaker. So, as we started out today, this is a bill that passed the last Congress. Had the Senate acted on it, we would not be in a situation that we are today. We are out of water because we are not using the infrastructure that our state has built and added on to over the last century. We decided to throw all that infrastructure away, not use it, dump the water out to the ocean. Now we have no more water left. And I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to reiterate what Mr. McClintock said. This is designed to kill the bill. This is a sneaky little lawyer amendment designed for litigation. This bill, the Valadao bill, stops all litigation and gives back the people of California their water, and it quits wasting water. That's what this does. I can understand why my friends on the other side of the aisle don't like to talk about the little 3-inch fish, which I guess it has a little brain now. Well, it's a bait fish. Of course it has a little brain. The folks you have to ask yourself about are the ones who come down here and talk about state preemptions when they know the Endangered Species Act is a state preemption. They know what passed in 1992 was a state preemption. They know what passed in 2009 was a state preemption. Sneaky little lawyers all over the place. Money, Mr. Chairman, money. It's about money. It's about NRDC. NRDC has made millions of dollars that we still cannot get an accounting for. Mr. Chairman, I want to know how much money has NRDC made off of bringing water lawsuits in the state of California? Millions. Millions and millions and millions. That's what this amendment is designed to do, is to create jobs for lawyers. That's what this is about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this amendment is another stall tactic. There's been several speakers who have talked about how this bill creates no water. Well, I hate to break it to people, but bills don't create water. It rains. That's why the founding fathers of our state, including Franklin Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy, two United States presidents, worked with the leadership of California to develop a system that could keep water for 5 years, so we could withhold 5 years of drought. I hate to have to use this, but this is how it works. Mr. Chairman, the sun melts the snow. The snow gets stored in the reservoirs. In this case, this is Yosemite, where San Francisco gets all of its water. Then the water runs out. That's how it works. That's how the system was designed to work. If you don't understand this chart, I have another chart. Once again, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, because this one is a little basic, but sun. Sun creates heat. Heat melts ice. Ice becomes water. Water we use to drink and irrigate our crops. That's how this works. Government doesn't create water. Government can only help to create the infrastructure to hold the water in an area that's like California that is always in a drought. So our friends from the coastal areas of California like to have it both ways. They like to drink their water from the Sierra Nevadas, pipe it over so that it never has to go into the delta. At the same time, they dump their sewage into the delta that kills the fish. So this bill is not designed to make it rain. Nobody can do that. We don't need to measure clouds. This bill is designed to get the water that we have in the wet years and hold it for the dry years. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from California yields back. The gentleman from California, Mr.